Welcome to the Tinnitus podcast, the one dedicated to bringing you credible information, hope, and support. Now, in this episode, we're going to make a slight digression from our usual concept here in season 2, where we normally talk to people or individuals who have tinnitus and live well with it, because we have some exciting news to share with you and a project to share with you. And I can't wait to learn more about this new tinnitus initiative. So with me, I have two people who can enlighten us more on that. And that is Sven Kuhlmann and Hazel Goddard. And I don't know, guys, would you like to just briefly introduce yourself and how you are affiliated with this project?
Sure. Thanks for the invite, first of all, Martin. Maybe I can start and then Sven can introduce himself. So first of all, I'm a tinnitus sufferer. I've had tinnitus for 6-7 years or so. And when I first developed it, I struggled a lot and I actually couldn't work for a few months, which has never happened to me before or since. So it was very severe. These days, I'm reasonably well habituated. But in that first period, one of the first things I did, because you quickly realize there's not much help out there, I went to seek help online from others. And I found the Tinnitus Talk community, and it was immensely helpful for me to just be able to talk to others who understand what you're going through. And also, there's a really useful section on Tinnitus Talk called Success Stories, which gave me a lot of hope that I could also get better. And there's a useful section on research news. So I also started getting into the research aspect of it. And then once I felt a bit better, I approached Marku, who started Tinnitus Talk in 2011. And I got involved, and I am now, together with him, leading Tinnitus Hub, which is the nonprofit entity that manages the Tinnitus Talk forum. But we also do other things like research projects. We have the Tinnitus Talk podcast. And since recently, Sven approached us to get involved in TinnitusQuest, which we're very excited about. And yeah, I'll let Sven introduce himself.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having us today. As you said, my name is Sven Kuhlmann. I'm 37 years old, and in my real-life career, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a medium-sized company, and actually I'm I would say I have a very classical tinnitus career. Started very early, I think, with my first concert. So I have it 22 years now. And over the years, I think in some situations you are not careful enough. So I had a couple of spikes over the years, the last spike I had was about 2 years ago, and it was pretty bad. I would say also reasonably habituated, but of course I have an academic background, so it was not a big problem for me to read research papers or statistical analysis about those trials. And what I always saw was that especially the gold standard, and that means double-blind, randomized, and placebo-controlled in those studies was really not appearing that much, because it's in most treatments that are tried, it's quite tough to actually do a placebo-controlled trial. So I started to think about the possibility to do direct investments into research, which I did already. But I always thought that this is probably not the solution. That's more like playing the lottery. And if you have the right numbers, then you win, but the chances are quite low. So I had the idea, thinking about that. I think tinnitus research, the way it is done today, is not effective enough, and that we have to connect research and the patient side, which at the moment are on totally two separate planets. And luckily, I was in contact with, I would say today, the leading researchers in the world. And this, together with the input from Hazel and Marku, and altogether led to the idea to start TinnitusQuest. And this is, I think, where we are at the moment. I think for a very short period of time, we have achieved quite a lot, and set up a process that will be done, or at least set up very soon. And this is more or less my story to the point.
Good stuff. And then you also told us a little bit about the background for setting up the foundation. I mean, your own experience with tinnitus, that you've dug into the research and that you've realized that there might be other ways of funding research or finding the money for it. And I think we'll get back to that. I mean, obviously, I have done research in tinnitus myself, and I also know that it's difficult to get the funding. And compared to other areas, we certainly lack the funding. But there might be some out there, not people with tinnitus, but others who'd say, "Why is it so important? I mean, why is it?" You, in your white paper that I read, you highlight the significant costs associated with tinnitus. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Hazel first, or?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Sven. So we know that 10 to 20% of the population has some form of tinnitus. We know that 1 to 2% of the overall population suffers from a severe, chronic, debilitating form of tinnitus. That's a huge amount of people. We know that current treatments are inadequate. We know that most doctors, audiologists, ENTs do not know how to deal with the condition and don't have much education on it. We know that it's a very difficult condition to communicate about. People find it hard to describe their experiences, and usually friends and family don't truly understand what a person is going through, because it's very hard to describe or imagine unless it happens to you. We know that those who fall into that 1 to 2% of severe sufferers, many of them have trouble sleeping, trouble working, trouble functioning normally in society. There have been studies done on the economic impact of that, which is huge. I don't know the numbers, maybe Sven knows them. But I think all of those things are reasons why this is so important. And it's really astounding that for a condition that has such a huge impact, that there's so little research, so little funding, so little public awareness. And I have to say, these days you hear a little bit more about it in the media. And I feel kind of ambivalent about that, because on the one hand, it's good that there's more attention, but the way it's communicated, very often it's along the lines of, "Oh, tinnitus can be really bad, but don't worry, everyone gets better, you learn to live with it," which is simply not true. And I think we have to be honest about the fact that that's not true. Not everyone habituates for whatever reason, because they are very severe cases. People's brains may be wired differently. People may have other illnesses or life circumstances that simply do not allow them to habituate. So I think we have to be honest about that. And unfortunately, there are people who have also taken their lives because of tinnitus. And I think, again, we have to be honest about that as well. And so I'm not necessarily happy with, it's good that there's a little bit more awareness, but I don't think we're being quite open and honest about the real problem here.
Right.
So in terms of the economic burden, I think we're talking about a number which is around 750 million people worldwide, which is a huge number. I think this appears to all hearing disorders, and the economic burden, I would just, maybe it's easier if I try a comparison. I read an article because I had a tennis arm. I don't know if somebody can relate. An epicondylitis, it's called, so you can't really lift a glass or something like this. And I read a paper in the US that this comes from micro movements because we sit around the whole day and click mouses and stuff like that. And somebody calculated that just for the US, and the economic burden of this disease was around 4 to 5 billion US dollars per year. And if you can imagine this number on this little condition, we surely know that the economic burden there is probably in the far 2-digit billion area we're talking about. And of course, the demographic factors are also something we have to keep in mind, that the population gets older. We have higher standards of living around the world. Emerging countries become industrialized countries. People get older, develop hearing disorders, and associated often with tinnitus. So that's something we have to keep in mind. And in terms of that, I think tinnitus has a huge impact, and it's very surprising that research has been on such a low level. And if we're honest, then most of the research that has been done in the last 10 years on a high level was financed by actually one high net worth individual who founded Tinnitus Research Initiative. And actually, this man had the vision to actually cure it within 10 years. And he was not happy with the result. But what he actually did was, and that's something great, is that he financed the basic research to actually know where we are today, actually moving from the ear to the brain. The shift of this focus was so immense. And that's something we're working on this basis we're working on today.
Right. Indeed. And you also mentioned, Sven, in your introduction that, you looked into the research and how it's funded. What gaps or weaknesses did you identify, and what do you think, what shifts do we need to make it more efficient or have better treatment options, in your opinion?
I will come back to the famous war concept. That was one research concept from Dirk de Ridder, one of the leading tinnitus experts worldwide, that actually triggered me to initiate this foundation and the process. The problem about tinnitus, as I said, it's very hard to apply gold standards in terms of research to this problem. And there's actually a disease, a very famous disease, that had the same problem 20, 25 years ago, or even 30 years ago when it was discovered, was HIV, AIDS. In the beginning, we of researching treatments, it appeared that if you try to use just one drug or and do large trials on that, which take forever and are super expensive, this has never led to a solution. When the war concept was applied to the AIDS science, what happened was you took every little bit of evidence that there was and did a very small, fast-paced proof of concept trial with a small but heterogeneous group of patients. And this led actually to the situation that you had the first drug, which gave you an improvement of about just 10 months more life expectancy. Then the second drug was developed. This has a certain amount. And when the first and the second drug were combined, we were at 5 years. Then the third drug came, we came up to 10 to 20 years. And the fourth drug, as some of you know or not, has actually given a normal life expectancy to the people. So this war concept applies to this kind of how are trials designed. And the second thing it does is of course, more aggressive and more creative research. And this is actually something you could probably talk forever about. But the main thing is that, as a lot of people know or may not know, if you have 4 phases of trials, trial first phase, second phase, third and fourth, and the third one is one of the most important, where you actually prove that your drug or whatever treatment it is works. And most phase 3 trials in the world that are done, the companies or the corporations or whoever does it mostly already know the outcome, because it's so expensive to do such a trial that a failure would be horrible. So, and if those trials fail, then they will never be published. Yeah. So in most cases, they just, diminish. And I think this is something we have to change, especially regarding tinnitus, because failures in tinnitus research are so important for other researchers who can fill the gap. And this is so important. And this is so important why this kind of disease or condition needs a holistic approach. And what is very interesting, I think, comparing to probably other conditions, is that we could finance those trials with compared little money. So Dirk de Ridder, for example, where I had a long talk about it, he said the average cost of such a trial is probably around 25 to 30,000 euros. This is the proof of concept that we're talking about, and I think this is what this is something we want to change, and try to create a environment and, of course, a fundraising that supports these kinds of developments.
So, sorry, Hazel.
Oh, well, I was going to give an example of what's currently happening in my observation in tinnitus research that is not working and how it can be done better. So I attend a lot of tinnitus research conferences, tinnitus and hearing research conferences. Last year, I was at the TRI conference, so that's, Sven already mentioned it, Tinnitus Research Initiative. They host I think the largest tinnitus research conference in the world. Last year it was in Dublin. There was one session on, it was transcranial magnetic and electrical stimulation. And there were 6 presentations, and each presentation was on a different trial. As far as I know, these 6 trials were not related. And each trial result was very underwhelming, right? So it was always maybe a few people that responded, felt slightly better, maybe 1 or 2 outliers of people who felt really better, but most of them really didn't have an effect. And then, of course, you have some adverse events as well. So it was really that sort of typical mixed result that you see from almost any tinnitus trial. Nothing really to write home about. But the question then always comes up, well, why does it work for these few people? Like, what's different about those people, right? That doesn't get investigated. So there's no follow-up and there's no linkage between all those different trials to sort of put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And so how you could do it differently is try a bunch of different protocols, because each, it could also be about the protocol. It could be about the timing or the frequency or the intensity of the stimulation. There's many, probably millions of different ways of doing that, right? So you could do trials where you try out many different protocols. You do a quick analysis, then you do a follow-up trial where you refine your protocol. You could do trials to identify who are the super responders, what are the characteristics of that group, and then do follow-up research on that. That doesn't seem to happen. It's always the one trial in isolation. And then, but we don't really take those learnings and put it into any kind of follow-up. We don't link all that data from all those trials together. So that's just something I observe what's happening today in tinnitus research. So more funding is important, but as Sven will point out, it's not necessarily very expensive to do these short, quick trials. So it's not just about the funding, but about sort of the collaboration and so the cohesion and the holistic vision.
Yeah, so actually what Sven is saying is that we don't necessarily have to dive into longer studies. I mean, mine took 3+ years to do. I did it in isolation at my own university. I didn't collaborate with any. We did not collaborate. So there are definitely some walls there between institutions, but also competition, which you need to take into account as well, that we compete for the same funding. And that makes it, of course, a challenge. That's one thing. But what Sven is saying is, shorten the period from starting the trial to actually applying it clinically. And you could do that by doing proof of concept. I'm just recapping for the audience. So you can do that by doing these proof of concept studies. And if they work, let's get them to work in larger groups. And then, as you say, Hazel, let's tear down the walls between institutions, research groups, and share more knowledge. That's also a thing.
I would like to add one thing to that, because I think it's this is very important. Tinnitus as a condition, and this is probably the most important question that research has tried to answer, is, do we have a top-down or a bottom-up approach? Yeah. So are we targeting the underlying cause of a tinnitus? And as we know, this can vary so much. It can be an accident, it can be somatic, it can be by ear syringing. I mean, there's a special research group which looks at tinnitus that appear after having naps. Yeah. So the question there is, what are we looking at? Yeah. So I think what is more coming is the top-down approach. So let's have a look at the brain, and what is the underlying cause, and can we target that? And I think this is very important from our perspective, and Hazel will add to that probably. All the research that has been done on habituation, CBT, TRT, from a patient perspective, that's over. We don't need any more CBT and TRT research. We really could stop funding there, because we know it works for some people, some better, some for some people concealing work and stuff like that. We know that works. And this, of course, can be applied in a clinic, or it can be applied over the internet, whatever it is. Our goal as the foundation is, we're looking at a treatment that covers, of course, ideally the majority of people. That's one. And the second thing is, we are talking about a simple thing, loudness. If you would ask the average tinnitus patient and ask them, if I could cut your noise level of the tinnitus by half, would you be happy? Yes. Everybody would right away say yes to that. So our goal is to find a effective treatment that covers the majority of people and reduces, and ideally gets the noise eliminates the noise. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, Hazel, sorry.
No, you can also speak if you want. It's your podcast.
No, that's fine.
No, I very much second that, of course. And I find it a bit concerning that in the past year or so, I hear more and more researchers say, well, what we really need to target is the distress that is caused by tinnitus. And if we can just solve that, then there's no issue anymore. And that concerns me a bit, because I hear it now also often from neuroscientists and people who are really fall outside of the psychiatric field, but they start to say that more and more. And I think the reason they're saying that is because they've been trying, or the field as a whole has been trying now for what feels like quite a long time, but actually in the span of scientific endeavor is not so long, to reduce tinnitus loudness, and they haven't really gotten anywhere. And then I think it just seems easier to kind of move the goalpost and say, well, what really matters is the distress, so let's tackle that. I think that's a dangerous road, because you're never going to be able to do that for everyone, and for the severe cases especially. And that's the people who we should be most worried about. It's probably just not going to work, whatever way you try to target the distress.
And it shows how far the research side is actually away from the patient.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a perfect example. And I think we all know it's a very difficult problem, but I am, and Hazel and the group that we're working with, and also the scientists, are very keen that we will find a solution. Of course, everybody will ask what time frame. I think time frames are always very dangerous because you'll never know what happens. But I will just try to give an example what the human race can do if there's really pressure coming up. We have seen that under Corona. And we've seen that with the mRNA development. I don't know if a majority of people know that the woman who got the Nobel Prize for the mRNA development, she was actually basically doing the research on her own. She was actually downgraded by her own institute. Every funding was taken away from her because the first 10 years nothing worked. And today the future, probably the future of cancer research will depend on this kind of development. And we saw that with corona vaccines. I know there are a lot of discussions about corona vaccines in the world, but whoever is able to read the right research papers can see that this development has actually brought us out of this situation, and in the end, it showed that if there's a really a group of dedicated people working on a very complicated problem, then we can find a solution very quickly.
Right. And finding this solution requires funding. And there are, of course, foundations out there who do fund research into tinnitus. But how does your proposal or the way you want to approach it, how does that differ? If we look at how to fund the studies and the research?
Yeah, so as I said, the special thing about the tinnitus community, as we probably all experienced, it's a very motivated community. Yeah, so it's a very motivated group of patients, and I think everybody can see that as soon as a trial comes up. There are probably way more applicants to the trial than they actually need. And this was one of the first things that came to my mind is how can we get the people on board that the patient becomes the solution to the problem. And what the people need so badly is transparent information about research. Because a lot of patients out there in the world have the feeling that nothing has been done. And that's wrong. And the researchers we are talking about, it's not like they don't know what to do. It's not like that if we give them €1 million tomorrow, they're like, okay, we can invest it because we don't have an idea what we could do research on. That's wrong. There are a lot of concepts on the table, really a lot of concepts. We saw them, and some of them are very promising. But of course, this is high risk research, and the companies, the pharmaceutical companies, are not interested into high risk research. And as we know, government funding can be super slow. Yeah, it can be super slow. And so we thought, why don't we use this crowd power? Yeah. If you just think that 750, or just take the severe cases, and everybody would just give €1. We're talking about 120, 130 million euros of research. Yeah. And this is so important. But I understand that if the people give something, they want to get something back. And on the one thing, of course, they have to feel that they're part of a process and a story that they have a connection to. And this is so important that we bring those researchers to a whole new communication level. This is very important. So what we will try or not try to do, this is a precondition that somebody will be part of TinnitusQuest, is that when we talk about a trial, whatever it is, or research that we will fund, that those researchers have a very short period of bringing updates to the table. So we're talking about 3-month updates. So that the patient always has the feeling, and of course the transparent view, that the money that has been invested, they're working on it. So after 3 months, there's maybe not a huge big update, but for the patients, it's so important to see that something is being done. And this has never been done before, as far as I'm concerned. I've never seen that on as an idea or as a process on a different disease or condition. So I think this is something that's very new. And of course, we will underline this this process with a very strong social media strategy. Yeah.
Right.
And of course, that's been done for other things to donate, but we all know that the younger group of patients is looking for solutions on social media more than probably as the classic Googling, try to find myself through the very complicated research world and getting on PubMed and whatever it is. So that's a very important part. And the second part, of course, will be also targeting high net worth individuals with this problem. And there are a couple of those worldwide. And I've already spoken to some of them, and they, first of all, are very thankful and keen that we are starting this process, because those are people that normally, and I can relate to that as an entrepreneur, 99% of my problems I can solve with either good people or money. And this is the reality. My problems that I have can be solved, and it's actually my job, and I really like to solve very difficult problems. It's my daily routine, what I do, and those kind of people are absolutely in the same situation. And let's be honest, we don't talk here about a philanthropic approach. We're talking about somebody who has a really big problem, and it doesn't matter how much money you have. It just doesn't matter. And the second thing is that and that's probably something Hazel also can relate a lot to, I want to stop the quackery and the bullshit that's been done on the internet to suck money out of the misery of people. And this is so bad, and this has become so bad in the last years. That's one of the biggest goals, of course, that we want to give the people a channel where they can educate themselves and are informed about real research, and no bullshit that somebody tries to suck the money out of them.
So 2 main sources of funding, you could say: crowdfunding and high net worth individuals who have some experience with tinnitus themselves would be quite motivated to be part of this. And you say something about transparency, and I think we're going to get to how people can get involved or participate or donate. But what platform do you plan to use? You say social media, and you are going to hire a team, or how is the whole structure going to be around the Quest Foundation? Sorry,
Hazel.
Well, so we have a team of people, currently 5, it might become more, who will be working sort of on the day-to-day stuff. That includes me and Sven and Marco and Jack, whom you've, I think, spoken to. And a recent addition is Charlotte, who's an ear nurse on TikTok. And so we're all working kind of on the day-to-day stuff next to our day jobs. So this is volunteering. And we're establishing the foundation as a legal entity, so that will happen in the next few weeks. So that entity will, of course, also have a formal board. And in addition to that, we'll have a scientific advisory committee that sets kind of the scientific parameters and advises the board on grant decision making. And that will include, of course, a lot of scientists, but we also want patient representatives on the board. That's very important, so that they get a voice as well in the decision making. So that's sort of roughly how the governance structure will look like.
And when you are someone who would like to be part of it, once you go live, how would you become part of this movement, I would say?
So by the time we air this, there should be like a minimum viable product version of the website should be live. That's TinnitusQuest.com. And there you can find information about our mission, vision, the team, our research approach. We'll hope to have some videos from the researchers that are already involved in the project there, information about upcoming events, and of course, a donation function where people can directly donate through the website, and a contact form if they want to be involved in other ways. And we're definitely open to involving more people, whether it's as volunteers, or maybe they have research ideas, or really, we're open to any input.
And if you are a researcher and you have a good proposal, do you already have some kind of idea of how can you submit at any time? Because this seems to be like kind of there's an urgency here. So if you have a good idea, would you just submit it at any time, or would you have to wait for 2 years like with other foundations?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. This is exactly the point. We want to be super fast and super efficient. What we will do now in the first place is, and I think that's very important as a first step in terms of transparency to the donors and people who support this movement, is that we will have a online call on the 19th of June with a lot of researchers, where the first step is their vision on tinnitus and how to target it as fast as possible. This is so important that the people have a feeling how big the variety of research is, and how many researchers there are. And there are many more than in the call, but that there is a significant group of people worldwide trying to tackle this problem. And the following 5 to 6 months will be hopefully already short time updates on this kind of research. But the kickoff really will be in the first quarter of 2025, where we have the first physical meeting. And of course, this physical meeting is very important, because we definitely don't want to be a research conference. This is not what we're looking for. That's a mission that TRI does, and does that very well. What we want is, we want to create an environment of 3 days here in Germany, where we basically do a brainstorming event. So it's very important that those 3 days are just for one question, is let's talk about it, let's speak about it, let's think about it, and maybe create groups, create research partners, create whatever there is to form new groups that work on the same problem, and that on a multi-center basis. And we would like to actually grant the first research give the first research grants out on this occasion. Yeah, and of course this meeting will be closely monitored and videographed by us, so that again the world can actually participate in it. And this will be the first step. And if you ask me for a goal that I would have to raise a certain amount of money to that time, would be around €1 million. This would be really something very satisfying to us. If it's more, great. I think we will hopefully have as many applications. So as I said, if the average grant size is around 25 to even 50,000, we could do a lot with this money, and we will keep the overhead costs of the foundation as low as possible. This is why we also do this summit in Germany, because in my business world I own a couple of hotels, so I will try to donate this meeting to the group so we can stay there. We have no main paid members at the moment of this foundation, so we'll try to keep that as low as possible. Of course, we'll have to spend some money on website management, all that, social media and PR. This will be probably our main costs, and we will try to raise as much attention as we can. And I think what really motivates us, and Hazel will point that out also, is that at the moment we're working on a really low level basis. So like contacting people directly, like you, Martin, or other people. And we get a lot of feedback, and even from really famous artists, who say, okay, we need to meet you guys and get a feeling about it. But we had a meeting with a very famous musician last week in Oslo, and I think he wanted to come for like 20 minutes and he stayed 2 hours, because it was such a relief for him. You could feel it, to speak to people who actually know about what they're talking about, and actually they know more as the average ENT, which is horrible, but that's a realistic situation. And I think he got a really good feeling about that.
So here you're talking about this TinnitusQuest summit that you are planning to hold once a year. And again, for listeners, normally when you go to a conference, they are very much led and driven by researchers themselves. But here it's more like a community coming together where everyone has a say, including the people that it's all about, those that suffer.
Absolutely.
So that's really...
Yeah, I think for people who are not in academia, they may listen to what Sven just described and think, yeah, of course, that's how you would organize a research event. But they wouldn't know that this is not at all how it happens in reality. Like I said, I've been to many research events, and they're always structured more or less the same. It's always a series of sessions where people present their study results. And it's just passively receiving information. There's barely any room for dialogue or discussion or collaboration. So this is, in that sense, unique, what we're trying to do here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, Sven.
Yeah, as Hazel said, I mean, the average medical conference is, poster discussions and all that, and it's more of a, showing what my competition set has produced, and this is what we want to go away, and that's also something that we will have to. I don't know if teaching is the right word, but that's something we have to bring to the mindset of this research community, that we're having a deal here. The deal is that we will take care of the money, but you'll take care of the solution now, and you'll take care together. Yeah, whoever has the solution is in the end a part of this movement. And I've said that many times already to the team, that probably one day, if we find a solution that helps as many people as possible, probably people will forget about us, but that's fine. This is, in that case, that's totally fine. I don't need a medal or something for it. I'm happy that we have a solution then, and then my personal road will be over, and that's totally fine. And I think then we have achieved something that will help millions and billions, and probably in future generations.
Indeed, and I think exactly these thoughts is something that when I got tinnitus 12, 13 years ago, I was thinking along those lines of why don't we have a community? Why don't we have, as you say, high net worth people who are interested in throwing some money into this and doing some work? And what encourages me here is that we actually get more of a business commercial commercially driven point of view on this, rather than people, in ivory towers doing their own thing. But this is, here you have some different requirements, and as you say, it's about, well, teaching. I don't know what you could say, but you need to adapt to this reality within your foundation if you want to be part of it, and that's, I think it's encouraging. So definitely. Can I ask one thing? Why hasn't this been done? Has someone tried it before? Because it seems really. I'm sorry. It's bringing people together, crowdfunding. It doesn't seem like.
It's not rocket science, right?
No, I was going to say it, but I didn't want to offend anyone. But it's not, is it? But why hasn't this been done?
I tell you, because there is a special thing to the tinnitus community. The tinnitus community is a community that has to learn to educate themselves, because nobody speaks to them. Even the big organizations, American Tinnitus Association and UK and German Tinnitus League, what they do is, they put their website up and they say, that's the problem, good luck. So that's it. That's the big communication. I mean, look at their updates. How often do they update on the news? Yeah. And this is something which doesn't give any solution to the people. That's just, it's nice, it's informed, we know that. Thank you very much for doing that. But you got it absolutely right, Martin. This is a business approach. This is probably my input maybe to this whole story is, originally I come out of project development. I do big real estate developments, and it's totally normal for me that I don't know the answer to any question. But I know that there are people out there who are specialists, and I have to bring them to the team, and the holistic approach brings the success. And that's as easy as that. And I would say that probably those organizations in general are not led by people with this background. It's as simple as that, probably. And so, it's often the small ideas and the efficient ideas that change the world. And everybody had that. Probably it was like when he saw something, maybe a product, was like, oh man, this I should have had the idea. That's so simple, but it's such a good solution. And I think this is the main case here, what we're doing. And really it's based on the kind of communication we're doing, on the kind of communication we are forcing up on us and up on the research side. And I have learned something in my professional life, that luck is not something that there is just swirling around out there. Is you can enforce luck. It's possible, absolutely possible, by working hard, dedicated, getting the right people on the project. Then you can enforce luck and success. And I think this is something we want to do. And I would like to add one more thing. We're just for the audience, we're just not working on one summit per year. We are working now on the first summit, which we hope that within the time frame between going live, having the first events, and this fundraiser period, that we will discuss with the executive and medical and research board, and of course the patient side, how should we set up future summits. Will be 2 or 3 meetings, because of course we want to let the people work and actually do research and not hang around on our summits the whole time, which is, I think, great, but they need time to work. So I think there will be much more coming. We work on that, because at the moment some things are even unclear to us, because one question we asked ourselves is, how much success will we have with this movement? There's no feeling at the moment. I think it's absolutely realistic that we say we raise a €500,000. I think we're on a good road to that, but could it be 5 million or 10 million? And this is something we don't know yet. We'll see what the future brings. But yeah, that's a position.
I would also like to answer your question, Martin, on why this hasn't happened before. I think we have the traditional tinnitus associations that Sven mentioned, and I don't want to talk too badly about them, because I think some of them have genuinely helped in terms of raising awareness and providing support, right? Those are important things. Some of them, you could question what value they've really added. But none of them have a real incentive to solve the problem. That's how incentives work with these kind of NGOs, right? They don't have a real incentive to solve the problem, because then they would eliminate themselves essentially, and they're not usually run by people who have an incentive to solve the problem. And as Sven pointed out, not usually run by people who have a more of a business-like mindset. So we have an incentive to solve the problem. We have a whole community behind us, including the Tinnitus Talk community, but other online and offline communities that have a real incentive to solve the problem. And the second reason I think it hasn't happened yet is that even though it might seem obvious, like all the things we're talking about, what needs to be done, it all sounds kind of obvious. But I've been working on this as a volunteer for now coming to 6 years or so. And I can tell you it's really hard to get the right people on projects like this. And we've been trying for many years to attract people. And very often people come knocking at our door like, I want to help, this is so important to me. And then, they try something for a week and it kind of fizzles out. It's really difficult to get a team together with the right skills, the right drive, the right ambition, and persistence. Like Marco's been doing this since 2011. He's persistent, right? But most people, they try something for a little bit and they give up, right? People often come to us and say, why can't we get celebrities involved? And then you bounce the question back, can you get a celebrity? Like, can you figure out how to get a celebrity on board? And then they're like, oh, well, I don't know, right? So getting the people with the right mindset together, and it is really difficult. It feels like we've done that now. So, and hopefully we'll attract a few more gifted individuals or very driven individuals. So that already gives a very positive momentum.
And I think I've been a really big pain in the ass for Hazel and Marco there in the beginning, because I had some people in mind which I saw and I spoke to. And of course, naturally, Hazel and Marco were, a little bit more distant. They were skeptical and was like, are those the right people? And sometimes you're just lucky. I think we found one great guy with Jack Ribonacci, who really added to the team and does an amazing work contacting musicians. He is a musician, so it's so important that we have people on the team that can speak to different levels of patient groups. Yeah, maybe I'm the right guy to speak to the high net worth individuals because I probably know how they think, what their needs are, and I would probably suck dramatically speaking to a musician, who has a totally different mindset. So we have him on board, and Hazel and Marco with a huge background on those topics. So they have probably a totally different approach on people. And then as what happened, I think that's a really nice story, is we had a meeting with Charlotte, actually just doing a podcast and creating some stuff for her channels. And in the end of this meeting in Oslo, where we really worked 12 hours straight every day, was in the end she said, okay, I want to be part of the project. I want to be part. I will support you. I will do the social media strategy and so on. And I think this is great. Yeah. And with her, I think we have a real specialist regarding all the social media topics. And yeah, this is, I think, what encourages us every day to keep on working on that.
Yeah. So all bases covered. We're all set to go. What do you hope, just because we're going to wrap up in a minute, but what do you guys hope will happen, and when? What is a good outcome here for you guys?
Long term or short term?
Let's just say, what do you dream about and when?
Ooh, I'm going to ask Sven to start this one.
Okay, I dream about a couple of things. My first dream is that we will attract as many of researchers as we can even those who are maybe not in our, I would say, direct field of view that we have at the moment. I think there are a lot of young, bright researchers, and that was very important, especially for the well-known researchers that will work with us on the project, that we attract the young generation of researchers and give them an opportunity. Yes, there is an opportunity in this field. It's very important. There are people who can manage to actually attract the funds. This is, I think, my first very important goal. The second goal is, of course, to raise as much money as we can. And we'll work very hard on that. Everyone out there who will support this movement is so important. Every euro that you can afford, somebody can just afford €1 a month, some can 10 or 100, whatever it is. It's so important to support that. And the third one, if you really ask me about a dream, then my dream would be that we find a efficient treatment, maybe not a cure, but a very efficient treatment within the first 5 years.
I will then add to that, yes, of course, the ultimate dream is a cure, or at minimum effective treatments that reduce the tinnitus signal. My intermediate dream, I guess, what I see as a crucial step to achieving that, is to make tinnitus research more patient-driven. And this is really like a pet project of mine, something I've become incredibly passionate about in the past few years. As Tinnitus Hub, I think we've made important steps in that direction. I'm these days being asked to be part of like scientific advisory committees and things like that, where you do get some kind of influence. We've also spoken at research conferences. We've done surveys among the Tinnitus Talk community, asking them what they want from research, and we've communicated those results to the research community. The missing link, of course, is the money. Because once you have the money, you can also enforce these things more, right? So I think that's where we'll be able to take a bigger leap in terms of really meaningfully involving patients in the research.
Yeah, and I think, just to add one thing about that, I think in general, tinnitus is just not a very sexy condition. Yeah, so it
doesn't
nothing.
sell tickets.
Yeah, it doesn't sell too many tickets. But it is a huge problem. And I think we are at the moment where mental health issues have been maybe 10 or 15 years ago. This was always not a very sexy topic. It was a taboo topic. And I think this community has managed it quite well to progress and make that a way more normal a condition that you can speak about, and this which is probably better understood today and also better research on and funded today. And what I really liked is one thing that also applies to tinnitus, because tinnitus, as a lot of mental conditions, we're talking about a network problem in the brain. Yeah, so that's one thing. And I think, especially, for example, with those trials in Switzerland with psychedelics working on that problem, I think this has been a very creative and aggressive approach to the problem. I think not many researchers in the world thought, okay, this is going to be the big thing. But I mean, the outcomes, I saw the trials were amazing. And I think this is something exactly what we need for tinnitus.
I will participate if we talk about psychedelics. Just kidding, of course. Just kidding. Well, microdosing is okay, I heard. Anyway, thank you guys for sharing your vision, your insights, and also on behalf of the tinnitus community, thank you for putting in this tremendous effort. And when our listeners hear this, we should be able to point them in some direction towards donation possibilities. And you said something about a website. Yes. Initially, TinnitusQuest.com.
Yes, you got it right, Martin. TinnitusQuest.com. Please visit us there. learn more about us, contact us directly from the website, and of course, donate if you want, if you can. Any amount, small or large, is very welcome.
Yeah, 1st of June. This is where the website will be online. We'll be online with our social media channels beforehand, and we'll make it as easy as possible for the people to donate. And of course, if somebody in your audience is coming out of the more high net worth region, absolutely, we're more than happy to speak to him. I am more than happy to speak to him to give him more insights on that and be a participant.
Yeah, let's get them out of the woodworks. So,
Yeah,
as we say, if
exactly.
we have them out here. And of course, I will try to keep our audience updated on your progress and the status and how it's doing. I will check in with you guys. And anyway, so thank you both for being part of this, and thank you to our listeners for also being part of this episode. And we'll see you, or we'll hear you shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
You're welcome. Thank you.